If you want a plan for the future, we can help your dreams come true. A degree that gets you the right job. It's affordable and easy for you. Asnuntuck Community College. Friendly people that know who you are. Asnuntuck Community College. A college so close I can take you so far.
Hello, welcome to Changing Lives, Asnuntuck's monthly show highlighting different activities and special programs of Asnuntuck Community College. My name is Michael Stefanowitz, and I'm the academic dean at the college, and I'm pleased to have with me tonight some representatives to talk about our transfer articulation pathway programs. We have Candace Barrington and Ken Kluchnick, who are TAP co-managers from our system office, as well as Professor Michelle Coach, who's a biology professor at the college. So welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So what exactly are TAP transfer tickets? Some people may see a poster that we have a sample of, and I think they're gonna be able to put up on the screen the CSCU transfer ticket. What is that all about?
Well, the transfer tickets are 60 credit associate degrees that students can take at the community colleges, and they're the first 60 credits of a 120 credit degree. So they can take them at any one of the 12 Connecticut community colleges and then transfer those into any one of the CSUs, Central, Eastern, Western, or Southern, or Charter Oak State College, and finish up that degree at the at the CSU or Charter Oak. And right now we have them in 11 different degree programs. We have them in biology, communication, chemistry, help me here. Oh, there we go. Criminology, English, history, mathematics, political science, psychology, sociology, and social work. So in any one of those 11 fields, students can start at the community college with the first half of the degree and complete the second half of the degree at one of the CSUs or at Charter Oak.
Great. So you pulled up a brochure here, if you can show that to the camera, but this is a clever brochure that talks about a transfer ticket. Can you just explain the idea of the marketing behind that? And we also have some posters and other things. The idea being it's a ticket along a journey, a pathway?
Yes, it provides a clear, once a student enrolls in one of these transfer tickets, she will know exactly what she needs to do in order to finish those first 60 credits. A lot of the answers that a lot of the answers to the questions that students have about transferring from a community college to one of the CSUs have been thought about and answered in these programs, so that a student will not have to guess about what she needs to take in order to transfer. These have been laid out carefully for her. So this ticket allows her to start her journey towards a full bachelor's degree at the community college, knowing that she's not going to get waylaid or stopped somewhere along the way unnecessarily.
So a lot of folks have heard a horror story or two about a student who may have transferred and had trouble. So who came up with this idea of transfer tickets? Was it the two of you? You thought of this one day and decided to bring these forward, or where did this come from? What's the history of the transfer TAP pathway program?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there are a lot of stories out there about students who transfer and don't get full credit toward their degree with the courses they take. In 2011, before 2011, there were two systems, or really three systems in Connecticut. University of Connecticut stands alone, but then there was a system that had the state universities and charter as a group, and had the community colleges as a separate group. In 2011, those two groups were merged to create the Connecticut State College and University System, which now includes 17 institutions, the 12 community colleges, the 4 state universities, and Charter Oak. And one of the prime reasons for that merger was it would make it easier for faculty to talk to one another so that students could find an easier time transferring among institutions. I want to say here that one of the things that we know is true is that students who graduate from a Connecticut State University, on average, 50% of those graduates will have already taken community college courses. So there was a market already, or a group of students out there already who were taking community college courses to graduate. The feeling generally, and we have some research to show this though, is that the more credits a student accumulated at the community college, the more credits they accumulated that didn't count when they got to the state university, because the agreements hadn't been worked out for how those courses would transfer. In 2012, the legislature passed a law that said 30 credits of degrees had to transfer from, that's half the associate's degree, had to transfer from the community college to the state university. The Board of Regents for Connecticut State University and colleges got together and put together a policy that said the way we're going to do this is not only say 30 credits have to transfer, but we're going to do it in a way so that the whole program will transfer. And they decided to make this a program transfer. They had done their research, and nationally was quite clear that transfer of a general education package doesn't always serve students well. If those first half of the degree is just general courses, oftentimes students will end up taking courses that are not the required courses for their major when they get to baccalaureate. So the Board of Regents wisely decided to make these program specific so that you would have, as Candace mentioned, at this point 11 majors. We expect to have another 10 or 12 for next year. And so the student transfers within the major. Now that's kind of the history that established it. When Candace and I were asked to take over, we decided that not only did we want to make clear what the students had to do for the first 60 credits or the associate's degree, we wanted to guarantee that when the students got to the state university, they would know exactly the second half of the degree. And so something that's new and different, other states are following the lead now, Minnesota being one of them, for instance, is students from the day they enter their program and they choose their major, they know how to get from the start at the community college to the finish at the state university. All of that is mapped out.
So there may have been transfer agreements before, but when they transferred, it might take more than 2 years, for instance, if things weren't set up exactly right. They may have taken a lot of general education courses, maybe some program courses, but they had probably a lot to do in their major, and it could take more than the 120.
Correct. And two things. One is that oftentimes the 60 credits required for the associate's degree, which is about 20 courses, oftentimes several of those or many of those would be specified and they would be major courses. But the loophole in many of the agreements is they kind of left open some of the other courses. They didn't specify what they were. And so the student would have to do some work along with advisors, and oftentimes they could get it right and try to find out what courses work. But the student would have to know the receiving institution. They would have to know which state university they were going to, and then would have to know the specific courses that would be accepted. So in the past, that's kind of one of the things that happened. And so the student might get surprised to show up and find out that the courses she took, they weren't all going to count. They might be transferred, and the student might get credit for them, but then the requirements would add up to more than half of the degree remaining when they got to the state university.
Okay, so I think you said the legislation started with a general education package. So could you talk a little bit about that? And I think this was the first summer that the work began on it, right? Was trying to identify what are the common general education. Some states will have a block of courses that are general education that everybody takes, that are same whether you're at a community college, state university, UConn type of a school, but we don't have that in our system, but we do have kind of a creative solution for that. Is that right?
We do, and creative is a good word for it.
Yeah.
So the community college degree is 60 credits in its entirety, or 20 courses. 10 of those courses fulfill what's called general education. And those 10 courses will transfer no matter where the student goes in the state university system. The creation of that 30 credits was a fair amount of work. Originally, there was some thought that that would be this collection of courses you're talking about that would be common at every school. But that would have been an enormous amount of work because 17 institutions would have had to adapt their curriculum, their courses, to meet that 30 credits. So the decision was made to make that 30 credits a group of abilities or competencies that students could accomplish. And they would meet those, but each school could decide which 10 courses generally would fulfill those competencies. And in the summer of 2012, right after the legislation was passed and right after the Board of Regents created the policy, and this is an important part of this work, 17 faculty members were convened from across the system, one from each institution. From the beginning, faculty have been at the center of this, especially in the early work, and they got together and worked out what those competencies would be, how they would be distributed among courses. So what we've come down to is having 30 credits of the degree that don't get transferred. You don't have to look at it very closely course by course and make sure that one course works at another school. Once the student completes those 30 credits, she will know 30 credits have been completed at the receiving institution.
And you mentioned the word competency. So, Candace, are these the reading, writing, and arithmetic type of categories that we may have thought of before? Or?
Well, reading, writing, and arithmetic are all in there, but they are instead written communication, oral communication, quantitative reasoning, scientific knowledge, scientific reasoning, aesthetic dimensions, and so on.
Right. The types of courses that every degree really contains some of, right? Whether even an associate's degree that may not transfer will contain some of those, but obviously transfer degrees probably will need more of those, right? At least 30 credits, as you say.
Right.
And these are the standard competencies of almost any general education program in the United States. These are there's nothing odd about them. They're very standard.
Great. So faculty got together, created these competency areas, right? And now, Michelle, if we can ask you the question, so how did it work at Asnuntuck? What happened when the word came back from the system that we had these 10 competency areas and Asnuntuck was going to be offering these programs in the future, and we had to have courses in each area. So can you explain that process a little bit?
So we looked at all the different competency areas, saw what courses would actually fit, and we looked at the outcomes that were listed for each of those competency areas. And anybody that wanted to submit a course from a department looked at the competencies and saw how it fit to the courses that they were offering. So we found, like for example, in scientific reasoning, we looked at a general lab science, like general biology, and we aligned how that course actually fit with that competency area. And our general education committee actually had them fill out an application. So that application showed how these courses exactly fit into that competency area, because we wanted to provide the best education for the students, and then they would meet all of these competency areas and be a well-rounded student.
And that competency area was scientific
reasoning and scientific knowledge were two different we used.
Whether it might be a biology course at Asnuntuck or a chemistry course at Manchester Community College or something at Capital, they all have to meet the same outcome, the same competency, right?
Exactly.
And there's a group that looked at those to approve them?
Exactly, and we had a full representation from the campus, and they looked at these applications. They said, we asked questions. We brought the person in, and they presented the information if we had questions. And we, as a committee, came up with what we would call our Common Core, or our Framework 30, which was those 30 credits that would fit. And we also looked at courses that would embed some of these competency areas according to what Asnuntuck had chosen for our one of the parts.
So it sounds like that was quite a bit of work, but relatively easy to do, in that there were some general categories that probably courses were part of, right? An English class would be a written communication class, for instance, or public speaking might be an oral one, right?
Exactly, and we tried to go with the traditional way in which we presented these courses. Some campuses went not as traditional and showed how they fit into these categories, but at Asnuntuck we wanted to have that solid traditional approach to our general education, our Framework 30.
Okay. So then we get to the major of the program, right?
Yes.
So one of the programs that I think Candace listed was biology.
Exactly.
That's been approved, a pathway or a transfer ticket. How did you agree on which biology classes that everyone would take to be part of that program? Because my understanding is it's one program, no matter which community college you're at, may go to different programs at different schools afterward, but it's one biology pathway. Is that true?
Biology was very lucky. We have a group that meets for the community colleges every single semester. We have the C3 Bios group. So we have faculty from all different the campuses. They come together, and we all have very common course outcomes, and we've always looked at how things transfer to the different institutions. So for us, the biology pathway was very easy to do. Really, it was looking at the close relationships a lot of the colleges had with the four-year institutions, and we were able to see very easily how we aligned. And we didn't align perfectly course to course, but by looking at Biology 1, Biology 2, and some of the other courses, we were able to align the curriculum in a way that it did match. So we didn't go course to course, but we went content overall.
So a student in the biology pathway, she would take Biology 1, Biology 2, she would take the general education courses that you had mentioned, and then what types of other classes? Other sciences, maths?
Exactly.
What,
So,
specific to the biology field?
Exactly. So we looked at also Chemistry 1, Chemistry 2. They have the option of physics. They also have the option of organic chemistry, depending on what that pathway is. And the pathway is very, very specific. It has semester recommendations. So when the student walks in, they know, okay, semester 1, I should start with this list of courses. So the transfer tickets are very clear in how the student should approach this degree.
Okay. So a lot of work went into building all this between the general education and the pathways, and you said there were 11 pathways?
Yes.
That all the faculty got together and worked on. So when did students start enrolling? When did this all become effective?
So we had our first students start enrolling for these back in the spring, and but they became effective this fall.
Okay.
So we have 433 students from across the system who've enrolled in these 11 programs at the 12 community colleges.
Wow.
And yeah, that's a significant number for a brand new program. So we're really pleased with that. A couple of things I just want to make sure that our audience understands is that these really are programmatic degrees, and they transfer as a program. So those 30 credits of the framework, they're going to transfer as a block, but they don't transfer as a block unless they're part of a 60 credit transfer ticket. So we need to make it really clear that these are 60 credit programs, and a student needs to finish all 60 credits in order to get all the benefits of the transfer ticket. And then another thing is to be clear, is that we've been talking in terms of semesters, but students don't have to be going full time in order to do this. We've designed this so students who can only take 1, 2, or 3 courses a semester can proceed through the transfer ticket pathway and finish. It may take a little longer, but the pathway is still available to them, even if they're part-time students.
Right. Many of our students at community colleges are part-time evening students, sometimes weekend, or just are working, have families, have other things going on. So, so it sounds like it really behooves the student to finish the associate's degree, to stay at the community college, however long that may take them, and then move on for what we tend to think of as junior, senior year, but it's really 60 more credits.
Exactly.
However that fits in
Yes.
time-wise.
Right.
So, okay. So 433 students, and they all have program sheets they can follow. They know which courses to take. And
well, you said this is an enormous amount of work, and putting these programs together was an enormous amount of work. Michelle was a really strong leader on the biology pathway because Michelle worked with 16 other colleagues from the system. Every one of these degrees, every one of these programs was constructed by a committee of a faculty member from every single institution. And it is some complex work, and I wouldn't want to show anybody the forms that had to be filled out, which I'll say something about in a moment. All of this has been really whittled down to our website. It's called the Transfer Navigator, and on the Transfer Navigator there's a transfer ticket. And it's incredibly simple in terms of what people will see. So all the hard work has been done. If you go to the transfer ticket website, you will see choose your major, and you can go by, you can choose your major and follow a pathway. You can choose your campus and find a pathway. Or you can say, I'm interested in a general field, and you'll come up with the majors that are in that general field. And you can get 2 documents. One document will tell you exactly the courses you need to take at the community college. And the next document, you'll have one for every single program at the state university. You click on a link and you get exactly the courses that will remain when you get to the state university. So it's really 2 sheets of paper tell you everything you need to complete the program. And we're kind of happy. We have to thank our webmaster for putting this together and making it so simple. I'll say that part of his brilliance in my mind is that he says everything should work like Amazon. It should be that simple,
yeah.
and nothing should be a mystery. And I think he's been very successful here. I just want to say a little bit about the complex paperwork that we've done. One thing we want to make sure of is that not only is the information clear to students, that no hitches occur on their move from the community college to State University. So all of that complex information is being used by a lot of people behind the scenes to guarantee that the promises made in the transfer tickets are kept, and that transfer happens and all those courses count exactly how they should count. So that work is enormously important. Nobody really needs to see it other than registrars and transfer counselors and admissions, but that work has been enormously important. I'll go back to emphasizing it's the simplicity of the site, though, that will be the public face, what we call the transfer tickets.
So what is the site? We want to make sure everyone has that. It's ct.edu?
/transfer.
Okay.
/transfer.
And I did go check out the site. I must admit I cheated a little bit, and I took a look at it before the show. So one of the things that I noticed at the website, again, ct.edu/transfer, is it calls up a graphic of the transfer navigator, but then below there's a slide, or there's a screen. It says I have an interest in, and there's some general categories. I think we have a sample graphic we can show the audience, like, for instance, humanities. So you had mentioned programs before, but these seem kind of like broad areas, like arts or business or humanities. So when I clicked on that, I got an example of some communication programs. That's because that's in the humanities, and there'll be other things in the humanities. Is that right?
As we develop more programs, we'll be including them under these larger categories. One thing we know about students, they oftentimes come to college without really knowing what they want to do. Mostly, as we've been told by counselors, they have an idea of what they want to do, but they don't know a major. And also, students coming to community college may, and to the state universities as well, may not understand what each specific major has to offer them. So somebody may say, well, I'm kind of interested in sciences. So what we do is we group all of those programs that would be considered sciences under science, and then we've developed them according to a guided pathways model, so those students can try a semester, and that semester they can switch majors, and all of those courses will still count to the major they switch into within that category. And many of them will still apply to majors they would choose in other categories. If somebody begins in biology, somebody could switch to English in the third semester and not lose any credit. And we've sequenced it in such a way that we give students as much time as we can to experiment, to try things, not randomly. We found that doesn't always work best for students. Give them a sort of guided experiment, and these categories are meant to be those starting places.
But I think Michelle said earlier that for biology there's some very specific courses, right? So if someone thinks they might be interested in science, they may have to initially start thinking biology or chemistry or physics, but there are some common courses that all science majors take. Is that what I think I heard, Ken?
Yes.
And that's when they call up and click through on the website, it lists those in that order. So they might take a general bio or a general chem first, or an English or a math. Is that
right?
Is that right? Okay. And I think you said earlier, and Candace, I'll ask you that there's a start-finish option on the website. Maybe Ken said that. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So if a student clicks on Start, it lists shows the community colleges that offer each of the 11 degrees, and then that's where they will start their first 60 credits. And then if they click on the Finish, it shows how each one of those degrees will be received at the CSUs in Charter Oak. Sometimes it's just a one-to-one. There's one degree at the community colleges, and it transfers as one degree at the CSUs. We have, in the fall of 2017, we expect to have a business pathway that'll be available. It's the same business pathway at all 12 community colleges, but it gives students the option to enroll into 17 different degree programs at the CSUs. So there'll be accounting, finance, management, and marketing that they can take at the 4 CSUs, and then one business program at Charter Oak. So that start to finish, they can see what they need to do under the start at the community college, and then finish at the 4 CSUs.
So if a student who might be living in Enfield wants to start at Asnuntuck, They could do like this business pathway, and they know, for instance, they want to end up at Central Connecticut State University. This would clearly show them what to start with and what to take, and, and what types of majors they could do at Central.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they can also, if they're not sure they want to go to Central, they can look at Central's final 60 credits, compare those to the ones at Eastern, and see if there was something perhaps at Eastern that Eastern offers that Central doesn't, or vice versa. So it gives them a chance to compare the programs across the state to see which ones are the best fit. Because for oftentimes students, it's not just about which one's the closest, but which one has a program that they might be interested in.
And you're from Central Connecticut
I'm from
State
Central Connecticut
University.
State.
And not everyone may realize that our state universities do have distinct programs and differences in what they offer, and for instance, I believe Eastern has a very strong early childhood education program, right? So if someone's very interested in that, they may want to focus and see what that would look like.
Yeah.
Central also has education, but I think they focus more on the secondary education.
Secondary ed. And there's another aspect of this that we haven't touched on that these transfer tickets provide, is that once the student transfers to one of the CSUs, he will have junior status. And they will, students coming in with that junior status can, if they decide they want to live in the dorms, once they get to one of the CSUs, they get priority dorm selection as native students would. They get priority registration as junior level students at the school. So many benefits, they get many of the same benefits as a student who's been at the CSU for 60 credits already. So if they've been living off campus and decide they want to have that campus life experience, that will be available to them as well.
They can still have that experience.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So it sounds like we have some students at Asnuntuck, Michelle, who are in the biology pathway.
Yes, I believe we have 4 at this point.
At 4, and you'll be meeting with them, and they obviously have a pathway that they can follow, but the other advantage, I think, to this program is that they're identified early, and we can do some specialized advising with them.
Yes.
In the past, students may have just chosen general studies or liberal arts, and we wouldn't have known maybe that they had an interest in biology in particular. But now what we're able to do is connect them to you, who's an expert in biology, and you can work with them and talk about specific items within the field.
Yes.
That's another advantage.
I'll definitely be reaching out to the 4 of them
Right.
and anybody else that has registered at this point and selected biology as the degree.
Right.
So this will be exciting.
Great. So you mentioned the business pathway. That seems like a pretty big success to go to 17 programs, and I know from behind the scenes there was a lot of work that took a while to get to, but you got there.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. And part of it was what you mentioned, the programs at the CSUs differ a great deal. And it was a real challenge to come up with one pathway. And they looked at one point like we might be creating a separate one for accounting, a separate one for finance, so that students would have had to make a decision earlier. We're very proud that the students don't have to make a decision about the specific major until their 5th semester. A lot of hard work on the part of faculty and some help from administrators at the right times.
Oh, good. Can't leave the administrators
Can't
out,
we leave the deans, right.
says an academic dean.
Right.
So 11 pathways, you said 10 more are coming? Is
10
that
or
right?
12.
10 or 12. I know that you're in different phases, different rounds of these, and
Yes.
stay tuned for more information, and maybe we can have you back at a future date to talk about the success
Yes.
as students
We'd love-
start
we'd
completing the
love that, yeah.
pathways and transfer on. So very exciting opportunity for our students to move on. We know people have been transferring. It sounds like now they'll have a little bit more direction for that. Anything else you'd like to add in the few minutes we have left?
Well, I
Anything
think
else
I
exciting?
would just add that we have about 500 people in the system who are working on this. And the merger of the system really brought people together for the first time to work together. And I think this project shows that the system on all levels can work together to get something accomplished. We depend not only on the 300 faculty who have been involved, thank you, but we have registrars, transfer counselors, admission people, information technology people, people on all phases of the college workforce who are really helping us to make this work for students. And Candace and I are really just sort of kind of shepherds. We're just kind of out there making sure everybody gets the right information and we answer questions. The work is really being done by many people in the system. We're very grateful for that help.
It's been amazing to see the faculty come together and talk and communicate from all those institutions. Make those connections. It's been amazing.
Great. So I think we have some graphics that we'll have in the show here, and so people can go. But again, CTE.edu/transfer. That's the key.
Yes.
We also have a poster here, right? And students can see these on campus, and then we have the transfer ticket brochures. Anything else? Michelle, would you like to add anything about the programs on campus, or?
I think it's been amazing. We've been able to implement all the programs at this point, and we're looking forward to looking further at the Framework 30 and begin assessing and all of that very shortly.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming to be on the show. Your first Changing Lives show, I think. On behalf of Asnuntuck, I want to thank you. And thank you, Michelle, for joining me.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. Have a good evening. We'll cut that out. Okay, good.
Asnuntuck Community College, a college so close it can take you so far. Asnuntuck Community